Excellent. All right, so let's step through this really quick. So first off, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it's actually quite ironic that this week is the 3-year anniversary of Microsoft Teams. And for you guys that don't know what Teams is, don't think that you're alone and that you're possibly considering a technology that is not being adopted, because it is greatly adopted across the US and across the globe. 93 of the 100 Fortune 100 companies are utilizing Teams. I think Teams is up to 40 million daily users, 181 markets, 53 different languages. The adoption rate of Microsoft Teams has been substantial. I've been in the Microsoft space for, roughly almost about 18 years. And this is probably competing with some of the most highest adopted Microsoft products in history. So there's a lot to it. So let's talk first, and this is really, really critical that you guys understand this. Teams is actually one aspect of the overall Office 365 ecosystem. And we're not talking about the Office 365 that people are subscribing for, Microsoft Office products as subscription based. We're talking about the business aspect of Office 365. We're going to talk about one of these slivers. We're going to touch a little bit into Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, maybe delve in Stream and Planner, and I'll talk a little bit maybe about Power BI, but for the most part, our conversation today is Microsoft Teams. Just realize that Teams does not exist really without some of these other products. And Microsoft has created an ecosystem by which we provide a great deal of collaborative tools to users. And you grant them access to become a group, and then they get the whole tool set. And Teams is just one aspect of that overall tool set, okay? And I'm getting a little flashy, just so let me make sure. Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that no one's having any issues. Okay, so let's dive into what does collaboration look like, because it's not just Teams. And I want to make that really clear. So we have individual functionality that's available in Office 365. Personal storage, that's OneDrive. We have task management, that's Microsoft To Do. We have email calendar, which is inside of Exchange. And then there is the chat, one-on-one, instant messaging, live communication capabilities of Teams for individual to individual. Then we have this concept of ad hoc collaboration or ad hoc conversations, where there's this one-time nuance. I need a group of people to get together. I need to meet. We need to chat. We need to share files. And we'll talk about what that looks like in the space of Teams. Then there's group collaboration. And this is structured groups. For instance, a department, a project team, a committee, a community of practice. These are defined collaborative groups. And as you become a member of that group, you get the tool set. That tool set includes SharePoint, Planner for task management, Teams for live communication and meetings, email or Exchange for email and calendaring, Power BI for business intelligence and reporting, OneNote for note-taking, Stream for video streaming, right? And so the idea is that we establish the collaborative group, and then you get the tool set. We're going to talk about one of those tool sets today. And then ultimately, kind of the bigger circle there on the left-hand side of your screen, the organizational content and communication. This is where SharePoint comes into play in regards to providing intranet and corporate approved content, news, standard operating procedures, knowledge repositories, and et cetera, right? And then encompassed around that entire ecosystem is our capability to stream videos, do document management, polls and quizzes, electronic form processing, business processes through workflows, enterprise search, and et cetera. Man, this is such a big topic, but let's deep dive into what Teams looks specifically. Now, here's the warning. So any IT guy on the call that you have Office 365, you've started rolling out Teams, and you did not do any 365 group planning, you are asking for a world of hurt. So sit up straight, look at your screen, make sure to pay attention to this, what I'm going to tell you right now, because this is the most important aspect for you IT guys. By default, Office 365 allows any user to provision a collaborative group, and they may not realize that they're doing so. Now, this screen's a little bit confusing, but let me walk you through a use case that is really common and often generates a bunch of chaos for a majority of our clients. So at the very top, we have some boxes. There's a box called Planner or Plan. That's a group task management tool. So let's be hypothetical. Bob at the office He's logged in through the web browser. He clicks the little app launcher button and he sees an app called Planner. He goes, oh, I wonder what that is. So he clicks on it and he does a little bit of reading and he realizes that it's a task management tool. And there's a button that says create a plan. He hits create plan. What happens in the background is a Forms workspace gets provisioned. He doesn't even know what Forms is, but a Forms workspace gets created. A OneNote notebook gets created. That plan that he asked for gets created. A Power BI workspace gets created. A SharePoint site collection gets created. And a stream video gets created. All because he wanted to create a task management tool. Okay, this is what comes out of the box. This is not an ideal scenario, right? Users often don't understand what they're provisioning when they create a plan or when they create a SharePoint site. So there should be some planning at some point, whether it's now or late in the future. We need to control the provisioning of collaboration spaces. Now, it can still be automated. There's ways to make an automated process, but what we don't want is groups making multiple department sites and duplicate project sites and those kind of things. We want to allow ad hoc collaboration and provisioning to happen in a restricted way, but we don't want it to generate chaos and confusion. And we live in the information age. Our problem is no longer access to data. Our problem now is information overload and confusion and chaos. And so we need to make sure that we create a structure that logically makes sense that users can consume, okay? Get off my soapbox. We can talk about that more specifically for you IT folks. Now, back to this slide, because I really want to set the tone of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about these collaboration groups that exist within an organization. You may say, Kip, well, what's a collaboration group? Those could be divisions, departments, communities of practice, projects, social groups, committees, workspaces, or whatever you decide to call them. But here's the key. Those are not the same things. Look at your organization. You may treat projects different than you treat departments. You may treat social groups different than you treat departments. So even though they're using the same tool set, it's important that we create distinctions and say, okay, well, when we create a project in Microsoft Teams, we're going to turn it on and off these levers to allow this type of functionality. If it's a department, then guess what? We're not going to allow external sharing because we don't want someone to accidentally expose our HR department to an external employee within the organization. So it's important that you kind of get some grasp and distinctions around what is or what are the collaborative groups within your ecosystem and kind of drive that concept moving forward, okay? All right. We'll wrap up with this slide and then we'll get right into our demo. So what we're talking about is at the center of Teams is this concept of an Office 365 group. That is a security group. So if I create an HR security group and I add Susan as a member of that group, now what does she have access to? HR's SharePoint site, HR's plans, HR's mailbox, HR's Power BI workspace, OneNote, Stream, and their team. That's how this works. You can't really use Teams without that group. In fact, lots of functionality of Teams will not work without SharePoint. Aspects of Teams will not work out with Exchange. And so it's the ecosystem is kind of what you're buying into. Now, some of you might be on the phone and say, well, Kip, we don't have Office 365, and you do have some options to utilize Teams. And I'll bring up these briefly, and we can chat more about them specifically. But ultimately, what's available to you is one, there is a free version of Teams for 200 users or less. So organizations that maybe want to try out Microsoft Teams and they're not sure what's available to them, sign up for the free version, try it out. Microsoft is also offering free licensing for 6 months to Microsoft Teams. To take advantage of that, you need to work with a Microsoft partner. You can reach out to me or Dave or us as part of the follow-up of this, and then we can actually help you through that process of signing up for free Teams, okay? Now, some of the functionality, like I said, will require Exchange, and I'll kind of point those out so then that way you don't get too excited about some of the functionality and then sign up for free Teams and then get mad at me because you're not seeing certain capabilities. So I'll try to remember that, but if you have some specific questions around that, certainly let me know and I'll answer those questions, okay? Let's get started. So I'm gonna pull up my little agenda here on purpose, by the way, because you should know about this tool as well, and it's called OneNote, and a very, very powerful tool. So this is our outline today. So we're gonna kind of go over scheduling meetings, chatting, file sharing capabilities, running meetings within Teams, and then some of the collaborative document management and conversation aspects of the Teams client. Now, it seems odd, this little step, because I'm involving my team as part of this demo. And so first, to involve them, I need to let them know that we're actually doing something. So I'm gonna pull up the Teams client. Now, the first thing, before we get too far ahead here, is this Microsoft Teams is available on mobile phones for iPhone, for Android. There's a desktop app for PC and for Mac OS, and there's a web version. When I think about companies working remote at home with the added distractions of our kids not being at school and just the chaos that is being created, if you're not installing Teams on your mobile device and using that to stay connected, there's a lot of chatter and communication that you're going to be left out on. The mobile app is highly beneficial, right? I can get distracted. I can go to my son's room, change his diaper, get a push notification on my phone, and see that there's a conversation happening and not have to be constantly in front of my PC. And hopefully some of my team members today will actually jump on a call with us from their mobile phones, and we can demo some of those capabilities. So first off, here's the Teams client. I'm on the desktop version. There's a web version. It's almost exactly the same. We have some navigations down the left-hand side, and I'll talk through those. And then I have some notifications here at the top, right? I'm on the JourneyTEAM tenant or organization. I can actually connect to my clients' organizations as well. But I could come in here and change my status, and I'm going to say currently doing a demo. So that way maybe no one bothers me. I can hit done, and now my status has changed. And people will know when they're chatting with me that, oh, Kip's actually in a demo, so maybe I should be a little bit more cautious in regards to what I might type to him. So let's schedule a meeting. So I'm gonna click in here, and I can just click a time, and I can schedule a call. So I'm gonna do an ad hoc team meeting. Please join. Here's my attendees. I can type the 365 group names or the individuals in which I'd like to join. So I'm going to invite Rhett. I'm going to invite Jonathan. Maybe I'll invite Shane, Ryan Comte. Who am I missing? Who else should I join? I don't know. I think Robert's traveling today, or at least trying to travel today, which is always fun. And I'm going to invite Brent. And let's just kind of go with that for now. And our time right now is 10:45. So let's schedule our meeting for 11. Yeah, let's just do 11, 30 minutes. And I'm going to add this to our channel, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. But I'm going to add it to our Teams channel right here. And I'm going to add it to maybe general, no location, details go here. And I'm going to send out an invite. Now I can, at the top of the screen, schedule an assistant. It will actually pull their availability from within Exchange, and I can see who's available, right? And I have a bunch of guys that may not jump on, right? Because they're at client sites and whatnot. So, but let's send out the invite anyway. I'm going to hit send. And ultimately that will send a meeting invite through Exchange. Now, for you guys that's like, Kip, there's no way I am actually going to another client to schedule meetings. I use Outlook, and that's just the way it is. Well, that's also very easy to do. So I can schedule a new appointment from within my Outlook client. And if you look right here, I have a plugin, Teams meeting. I hit that, bam, automatically schedules the conference line, the phone number, and adds it within the Teams client so I can invite additional members, and I already have a Teams meeting set up. We will actually join that meeting momentarily, but until then, let's go over other aspects of Teams. So the first one is chat, top left-hand corner. This is what Skype was, or this is what Hangout was, or for you old school guys like what was the MSN Messenger or AOL Messenger or whatever. This is one-to-one chat capability. So as you can see here, at one point, Rhett said, hey, can you send me the agenda? I pasted in an ugly version of the agenda, and we have a threaded conversation. Now, unlike Skype and some other tools, this is persistent. I can scroll up and see our conversation over a long period of time, and him and I can chat. I can then look at these tabs across the top up by where it says his name, and these are files that Rhett and I have shared with one another in our one-to-one chats. I can then say, well, you know, I wonder where Rhett sits within the organizational structure. And now I can see the org structure, I can see who he reports to and who reports to him. And then the activity tab across the top just gives me a summary of activity that him and I have been involved with over a period of time. And that is what I get on one-to-one chat. Now, and we'll go over more capabilities in here, but ultimately I can type a message simply by just typing at the bottom, or by the way, I can hit Control N for you existing users. I can hit Control N, start a new chat, type Rhett's name this way, and we can then just start chatting. I can mention him, I can do announcements, I can even make something that's more important. So I can say, hey, you know what, this is just a standard conversation, but you know what, maybe this one's urgent. Can you, oops. Can you please chat with me after our team meeting? That urgent notification will actually show up differently in Teams, so he's aware of it. And he will actually get an email notification that I sent him an urgent post. You'll also see that Rhett gave me a thumbs up. So that's his way of saying, got it. You know, I'll certainly do that. I can send messages to him. So hitting this attachment here at the bottom, I can browse my OneDrive, which we'll talk about shortly, or I can upload a file and I can send that file to him, and that file will then show up in our one-to-one file transfers that we've done. Now, for the technical folks, the question then is, well, where's that file? Files are never in Teams. Files, or these files in particular, are in OneDrive. So as I grab a file and drag it into this chat conversation with Rhett, what's actually happening is, so let me just demo this. So if I come, I have demo files here. Let me see if I know where they are. Documents. Okay, here's a demo. Here's my demo files. So I'm gonna grab one of these files, and I could browse if I wanted to, or I can drag this expense report into the chat window. It uploads, you'll see a little progress bar that it's uploading. Once it's uploaded, I can then hit the send button, and what's happening in the background is that travel expense is uploaded to my personal OneDrive, and my OneDrive, or for you that don't know, OneDrive is my individual company storage as an employee. With Office 365 subscriptions, each employee gets 1 terabyte of individual storage. So that file got uploaded to my OneDrive, and it automatically created a share link to Rhett. And with that share link, Rhett can open up the travel expenses document, make modifications, hit save, and it's still stored in my OneDrive. And now we have a collaboration. And he's really excited, so he replied back with a GIF in regards to, maybe it looks like he's more sad about having to fill out a travel expense report. So, but ultimately, we are using individual file storage, we're sharing links, and we're chatting with one another. Now, this is cool. Like, this is great capability. And to be frank, this is what we're also used to doing with Google Drive, with Dropbox and Box. Everything's, most of it anyway, the free versions are individual storage, and then we're sharing out links constantly to everyone on a regular basis, okay? Now, although that's somewhat effective, we'll get into the Teams aspect of Teams, and we'll open your minds to a far more efficient way of collaboration that goes above and beyond just individual sharing of links on a constant basis. Okay. Now, a couple other things before our meeting starts, because we have roughly about 6 minutes, is here's my recent chats. I can ping chats at the top as well, right? Or I can actually start a new chat. And so I'm going to hit my Control N, or I'm going to hit new chat at the very top. And so in this case, I'm going to invite Rhett, and maybe I'll invite Jono. And now I am starting a group chat. And ironically enough, I've had a group chat with just Jono and Rhett before. So it recognizes that and pulls in the conversations that we've had. Now, if I add a third individual that's never been part of this conversation, it's going to generate a new chat scenario, okay? And in this example, I can do a test chat, and now we're all sharing. And those same capabilities exist. If I share a file here, uploads it to my OneDrive, generates a share link and sends a share link to Jono and sends a share link to Rhett. And then I can have the files tab and see the files that have been shared across the both of us at any given moment, okay? Now, let's say that Jono and Rhett were constantly communicating on a regular basis. This is more than just a one-off scenario. I have this pencil at the very top by their names, and I can actually give this name a group. So let's call it COVID-19 group. Hit save. It's now renamed. And now over here on the left-hand side, I see that my group name. And if I want to, I can take this group and I can pin it at the top. So whether it's a most recent conversation or not, I can quickly navigate to my COVID-19 group and then have these chatted conversations, okay? Now, at each of these chat capabilities, I have these little ellipses where I can unpin, mark it as read, I can mute chatter that I'm leaving, or I can actually even leave that chat group conversation because, you know, maybe I'm over it and I don't want to get any more noise. But I can always add or create a new chat groups on the fly, share files on the fly, and etc. Okay. And as a reminder, as I'm going through this stuff, if you guys have questions, post your questions. We'll try to save a group of questions for at the very end, or Dave may be moderating some of the questions and he may interrupt me at any time and maybe we'll answer some of those midway. So, but don't hesitate to write questions or to post some questions.
Kip, did you want me to give you a couple questions now, or did you want me to wait till the end?
Yeah, let's do a couple questions because we have 3 minutes before our meeting starts.
Okay, one person asked, is it possible to redirect OneDrive to an on-prem storage?
The OneDrive here, no. Teams is not going, you're not going to be able to take Teams and redirect it to on-prem storage for the integration capabilities.
Okay, here's another one. If you share a doc that ends up on your personal OneDrive, is it now in 2 places, your computer storage and OneDrive?
Yes, and that's why you shouldn't do it that way. So, and I'll talk about it, right? Because if you see that concept, right, we use this analogy all the time. Emails are the most efficient ways to share files, right? I send out an email, we copy 20 people, they all have a copy, they make edits, we go back and forth. Before you know it, we have hundreds of copies of the same document, and we're all kind of maybe using the wrong versions, right? Links are very similar in the sense of once I shared here, you're right. The file that I uploaded or dragged into the chat box, it's still there. Now it's on my OneDrive. Now I share a link. What if someone else joins the conversation? Now I have to reshare the link. Imagine a department of 50 people and we're using OneDrive and we're sharing links with each other and a new guy gets hired. What are you going to do? Everyone reshare everything and have this conversation all over again because the new guy joined the team? So it's ideal for these one-off scenarios. It's not ideal for overall group collaboration. And that's where the concept that I was illustrating earlier is, and I'll pull up that slide deck briefly, is we establish a collaborative group and then we place the files in that group. So now if I say, hey, Rhett, take a look at this file, I'm not sending it to him. He already has access to it. Now I may generate a link and give him the link so he knows, give him a quick shortcut how to get to the file, but he could also easily navigate to the file, collaborate on the file, all without me having to reshare links through OneDrive or emails and those kind of things.
Perfect. Last question, video chat. Some people had questions about video chat, if it can do it, and I bet you'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to get into that literally right now because we have a team meeting started and we'll illustrate that, and I'll talk about individual video chat right after that meeting because I think Rhett might have some follow-up questions post-meeting. So if I hang out here for a minute, what's going to happen is we have a scheduled call for 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is in 1 minute. If I hang out and I don't jump on the call, eventually when someone does join, Teams is going to give me a push notification saying, hey, someone has joined this meeting. That's really helpful because I can't count how many times, unfortunately, I'm trying to multitask, work on something, I lose track of time, and then all of a sudden I say, oh, someone's jumped in the meeting. I thought, oh yeah, I have that meeting, and then I jump in as well. Okay, so that's a really great feature that often I get used. Now, in this case, I'm just going to jump in the meeting. So now I scheduled the meeting in 2 places, or you know what? Ignore that I just said that because I don't want to confuse you. So here's our meeting. Where is our meeting? Okay, hold on 1 second. So I think I scheduled for the, there's an ad hoc team meeting. Please join, Rhett has started the meeting. So here you go. I can join the meeting there, or I can come in here and actually join the meeting. So I'm gonna hit join. And we're gonna see how this works, by the way, because we're on, what are we on? GoToWebinar or whatever, GoToMeeting. And we're gonna start a team meeting, and we may get a little bit of echoes and stuff. So kind of bear with us, because I don't think audio video comments intended to handle 2 videos and 2 audios meetings at the same exact time. Okay.
And you know what, somebody asked about that, Kip, why we're using GoToMeeting when we're talking about Teams. And I think it's just because we're demoing it right now.
Totally. If we try to have you guys all in a Teams meeting and run a Teams meeting, we may actually expose the matrix of some sort, or bend time and generate all kinds of problems. So, all right, Jono, Shane, and Rhett, can you guys hear me okay? And Shaolin? Okay, awesome. So we're having our meeting. So by default, Teams, we have our webcams on. I'm gonna probably keep my webcam off because I'm afraid that it's gonna jack up GoToMeeting. So, but anyhow, we have our chat going, and we have a meeting. Really basic, nothing too critical here. We have audio. Someone could dial into the phone if they wanted to, and someone could join this meeting via their mobile phone. Are all you guys on your PCs, or anyone on their mobile phone? All PCs, not a big deal, but it would almost show up exactly the same if they're on their mobile phones. Now let's talk about what are the features available to us from a meetings perspective. So the first one is, and let's kind of start on the right-hand side of the little control bar there at the bottom, and let's just show participants. So right now I see the individuals that are or have been invited to this meeting, who's on it, and then who's just been invited. And there's a little bit of artificial intelligence here, a little bit of AI of, hey, maybe you should suggest we invite Darren maybe to this meeting. I don't know why. Maybe it knows that Darren's a little sensitive and has a low self-esteem. So maybe we can invite Darren, and we'll see if he jumps in. But at any moment, I can easily type up here and invite anyone to this meeting if I wanted to. So I initially invited my group, but I could add other members at any time to the actual meeting itself. Okay, let me move this little control because I keep all right, so moving on the controls at the bottom. The second is our chat capability. So I can have a conversation with my team. When I click on that button, the conversation loads on the right-hand side, and we can have a chat conversation. Everything from announcements, we can drag files in here, use emojis and GIFs, and just ultimately have a conversation while we're having an audio conversation on the left-hand side. Now, another capability that's super fun, and I think it's really interesting, is the dictation. So where is it at? Turn on live captions. So I turn on live captions. It's going to take a little second here to load. And as I talk, Teams is actually translating the audio into text at the bottom of my screen. Super, super cool. And Jono has a really bad mouth, and so we had him cursing earlier to see what would happen, and it was awesome because it just assumed it was a good word, or it just full out just skipped the word. So for you guys that are worried about having a teammate that's that speaks like a sailor, this is a great way to communicate with them, because then you won't be offended by their language. The other capabilities I'd like to point out is blur. So Rhett's kind of in a bad lighted situation. Jono, why don't you actually turn on blur on your webcam? So if you guys notice, Jono, pretty crisp background, but maybe there's a lot of things going on or confusion on his side. So he can actually blur his background, and it blurs it out, so we're less distracted with what's happening behind him. One of the capabilities that's coming soon is the ability to inject a background image, so it just completely just blanks out what's behind you. So what else, guys? What else am I missing?
Somebody asked if there is an attendee count limit of how many people you can have on Teams.
Yeah, there is. And they just upped the limit as of like a day ago. Which is well, let me answer the question. I think the attendee limit now is over 1,000 for a meeting. There's another capability of Teams called live meetings, and I think live meetings have up to 10,000 attendees. So but a live meeting is more like a presentation. To be frank, live meeting would be perfect for this, right? For what I'm doing with you guys. But for a team, it doesn't do all the chat and all the other capabilities. But there are limits. We can actually certainly provide those exacts. But I think it's 10,000 for live meetings and over 1,000 for individual team meetings. Now, my point being is that just changed, which is why JourneyTEAM, what we've started doing recently is doing quarterly technical updates for our clients. This ecosystem is changing all the time. And one of the problems that we've seen that a lot of our clients are having is they're doing their jobs. They don't have time to stay up to date with all the constant changes that Microsoft is making to Office 365, SharePoint, and Teams, and all the supporting technologies. And so we've started doing quarterly technical updates, just a webinar just like this that you can join and get updates around Dynamics 365, Cloud, Azure, CRM, ERP, Power BI, Power Apps, Power Flow, or Power Automate now, Teams, SharePoint, and all the Microsoft supporting technologies. So if that's something that's interested you guys, certainly let us know.
Quick
go
question,
ahead.
Kip. Somebody asked the dictation that's down in the bottom, is there a way to save that dictation, or does it go to a place that you can grab it into a digital format?
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue, because if you guys notice in our meeting chat on the right-hand side, Rob said, hey, did you talk about recording a meeting? You know what? I didn't. So I can click on this ellipses on this toolbar here, hit start record. A little notification goes across the top of the screen letting know all attendees that, hey, this is getting recorded. It's part of our privacy policy to make sure that we notify everyone. And now this meeting is officially being recorded, which includes audio, video, and the captions across the bottom of the screen. Okay, and I'll talk to you guys about where does that show up a little bit later when we talk about Teams and where does it get stored and all that kind of stuff. But that is how you would store the captions across the bottom. All right. Any other questions?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Somebody was just asking if you could share your screen, and the answer to that is yes. Anybody in this meeting can share their screen.
Yeah. So let's demo that. This is perfect. So in this case, by the way, I can turn on my camera. I can mute myself, right, on this actual meeting. And we can see that now Rhett is sharing his screen. So Shane started sharing and he's browsing the web. That might be dangerous. I don't know. I'm just saying. But anyhow, so Rhett's sharing his desktop and I can then choose to share my desktop and we can go back and forth and have conversations within this actual meeting itself. Okay. All right. Let's talk about, well, I guess we can whiteboard if you guys want as well. So let's actually leave it to that. We can whiteboard the meetings. So Microsoft has a desktop application called Whiteboard. It works really well with Surface PCs where we have, pins and we can actually dictate notes, but we can whiteboard. And this might be particularly really helpful for our current state of things, right? When we work with clients that are international or out of state, it's not uncommon that we whiteboard, right? We whiteboard in a lot of our meetings because we're trying to illustrate concepts or architecture around systems and we need some type of drawing capabilities. And so we have that same capability here where I can pull up whiteboard, dictate, share my screen, and we have this capability of whiteboard together. If we have enough time, I can actually demo the whiteboarding capability, but I can actually create a whiteboard, invite these guys to the whiteboard, and we can all whiteboard together at the same exact time. So pretty slick capabilities as well. All right, I think we're about, let's see. Yeah, I think we're about wrapped up on the individual team. So we'll go ahead and just cancel the call. As I hang up, recording, of course, automatically stops, and then we'll talk about where that recording shows up momentarily. So thanks, Shane, Jono, Shaolin, and Rhett. Appreciate it. So I'm going to hang up. And now we're back to the Teams client. Now let me jump over to OneNote and just take a look at how we're doing. So we did one-on-one chat, file sharing from OneDrive within the chat, organization activity, and group chat. We covered audio, background, captions, message importance, and recording. So now let's jump into Teams, the team aspect of Teams, not the individual chat aspect. So what we're going to focus on is this panel on the left-hand side. Now you'll notice, and we're going to look at 3 teams in particular. The 2 teams at the top, general executive and general leadership, those are teams that I have pinned, okay? And in fact, just to eliminate the confusion here, let me unpin them. And let's focus our attention on 3 teams that I'm part of. I'm part of Health Freaks, the SharePoint Knowledge Management team, and the JourneyTEAM community, okay? Now, security in the world of Teams is managed at the team level. So for instance, the SharePoint KM team has specific members. If I click on this ellipses and I manage my team, I will see who are members of my team. I have 2 team owners and I have 10 guests that make up this particular team. Pretty straightforward. Underneath the team is what we call channels. Channels are grouped conversations, files, and functionality based upon whatever topic you come up with. Now, by default, every team comes with 1 channel, and you can guess it, the channel is general. So in this case, the general channel automatically exists once the SharePoint KM team was created. The Q&A, roll call, thoughts, and fun stuff are channels that we created on the fly. Let's show you what that looks like. So from the team, I can add a channel. And I'm going to say COVID-19. I can give the channel description. I can make the channel standard access, so everyone that was a member of the original team has access to this channel, or I can make a private channel that is only limited to key individuals. In my opinion, and it's a technical conversation, we're not going to go there, the private capability of a channel is a bad idea. If you want more details, we can chat about it more, but there's major flaw in the thought process. I believe on JourneyTEAM's YouTube channel, we uploaded a post or a video explaining that. So you can check that out or just ping us, and maybe even if one of you guys want to talk about it later, we can talk about it at the end of this call. So in this example, I'm going to do standard permissions. I click add, and a new channel gets created underneath the SharePoint team. Now let's talk about what comes with the channel. So the first thing is, notice the tabs across the top. So the channel, we have the team name at the top, COVID-19, and you'll see posts, files, and wiki. So posts are conversations. Literally, it's as simple as you think it is. This is a conversation. I hit post, and people have a chance to reply. Now that's a standard conversation. Now let's kind of deep dive into this a little bit more. Let's say we're part of the COVID team and preparing our organization to deal with the repercussions of this virus. Well, a conversation that you and I might have is maybe, let's just say, not important enough, or it doesn't stand out enough. So I have this capability in the bottom left-hand corner. I can format the conversation. I can add a subject that will make it a little bit more bold. So let's say conversation with subject. And then details here. And I hit submit, and you'll see, right? We have this bump up, right? The little conversation. Now we have a conversation with a subject. Let's step that up even more. Let's switch it from a conversation to an announcement. Everyone, please read. I can change the background color, right? I could do a couple things. I can make it even mark it as important, which injects a red line down the left-hand side, and then I can chat details. And I can hit send, and as you see, those show up even differently, right? And there's additional notifications that happen because I flagged it as important. Let's take this a step further. I can do that same thing, and then I can call out individuals. So for instance, I'll type a headline, and then I could say, Rhett, please work with Jonathan and reply to this post. And they will receive notifications within the Teams client. Now, you'll notice something right now in my Teams client. The chat has a little two indicator, unread indicator in my chat. They will get that because I mentioned them. Now, otherwise, if I don't mention them, what will happen is these channels will end up having a bold section. They'll just be bold, more bold than the other channels. And that tells me that there's something that I haven't read there. A red indicator will show up if I get mentioned in some particular way. Okay. Now, there's even more capabilities around conversations. Let's say that our organization has moved to Teams as a temporary remote solution, and we need to blast every department. It's super important. And I don't want to have to create a post conversation here and then do the same thing to all 50 departments within the org. So in that example, I can actually do an announcement. Can do announcements, and then I can say post to multiple channels. So I can select channels, and I will see all the teams and channels in which I'm a member of. And I can select them across the entire org and then push out a notification that shows up to all teams in the appropriate channels in which I've selected. I can also configure if people can reply or I'm just moderating and etc. So there's some capabilities in regards to kind of the reply capabilities. But by default, a conversation, people that are part of your team can create posts, reply to posts, and back and forth. It's collaborative. It's not a formal read-only kind of state or a read-only kind of scenario. You're part of a team, right, for that matter.
Kip, I got a question. On
Yes,
the flip
sir.
side of that, a question in here, let's say you're a healthcare company and you need to lock down maybe some HIPAA compliance and you only want certain people to see certain information. How would you approach that?
Yeah, and that's perfect. So Teams is collaborative in nature. So if I'm a member of the team, I'm a member of the team, period. There's actually no like read-only capability as a team, believe it or not. So the way we address that is we address that via SharePoint. So within SharePoint, I can create a company's intranet, have company news posts. No one can create the posts, but they can consume the posts. And I can create news posts within SharePoint, and then that's how that information gets consumed. Now, one of the capabilities, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, one of the capabilities that is available to us within Teams is the ability to integrate with other systems. So I click the tab across the top, I'm going to choose SharePoint, and in this example, let's say in the example that you gave, Dave, that we create maybe a SharePoint site for, I'm trying to think of an example. We create a SharePoint site for HIPAA compliance news and policies or whatever. And we grant everyone in the organization read-only access. But we're not ready to roll out a company intranet, Kip, and there's all this other stuff, and we don't generate confusion. We just want to stick people within Teams. Not a problem. We can come here. We can reference a page within SharePoint. I can hit save. And now a tab will be added at the top of this channel. And in this case, I'm linking to a corporate directory that we have. And now I can access the corporate directory from within the Teams app, and I don't have to navigate to SharePoint. Pretty slick capability where in this example, we have a custom interface of a tooling that we've developed for ourselves and for our clients, and that's being exposed within the Teams application and not requiring the employees to have to go to SharePoint for that stuff. So in that example, I would create a library in SharePoint and expose it within Teams. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, follow up with Dave on those additional questions, okay? All right, so we have posts. We talked about the different kind of posts, GIFs, those kind of things. Now, I also have the ability to do a meet now. So let's say this channel, the COVID team, we're chatting back and forth. I'm chatting with Rhett and Jono, and I'm like, you know what, guys, let's just have a call. So I'm just gonna hit this meet now button and say, let's talk really quick. And I can hit meet now, and we're just have a call. Now, if you notice, no one's in the call yet, so I can invite people. So I'm going to invite Rhett to join. It's going to call him, and we'll see if he's available to hop on, right? And so we have this instantaneous, hey, let's just meet really quick, right? And we did this all from within our team. Now, if someone happens to go to the COVID channel, they're going to see that a meeting just got started. And at that point, they can say, oh, hey, I'm going to join that. And they may join the meeting on the fly, even though I didn't purposely call them as part of this meeting. Okay, so that's another capability that we can have. All right, Rhett, ping me in a second here.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so that is posts, right? And now you can see meeting just ended. I can rate the quality time if I wanted to. And if I chose to record the meeting, then this is really slick. If I chose to record the meeting, once the video gets optimized for streaming, it will show up in this thread as a meeting that I can watch and listen to at a later time. Pretty slick capabilities. Okay. All right, so let's go look at these tabs across the top and let's see what else we have within a channel. Oh, so I'm getting a phone call from Rhett. I can answer and just do audio if I wanted to. If I choose the video, it'll do audio and video. And I may have not answered quick enough. Well, maybe I did. Okay. Hey, Rhett.
Yeah, where do I find the expense reimbursement form?
You want to work on it?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I sent a travel expense report to earlier, if you guys recall, with Rhett. And so you'll see the video or the document in the chat on the right-hand side. If I click on that file, it will load the Word document within the Teams client. Now, I really have multiple options here. One, I can work on this travel expense report within the Teams client. I can be having a chat conversation with Rhett at the same exact time, or I have the ability to launch this file within actual Word on my desktop and modify the file at that location as well. Co-authoring exists in all of those scenarios. So right now, Rhett and I can both edit this document at the same exact time and have a conversation and be talking about it all while editing the document. Now you'll see the way I know that Rhett's modifying the document, one, because I sent it to him, we're obviously having a conversation about it, but if you'll notice at the top of the toolbar, there's a little indicator that with Rhett's photo and it has purple around it. And then you'll also see that there's an RA, his initials, and a purple indicator on the document where he is making changes on the fly. So him and I can now go back and forth, modify this document, have a constructive conversation, and then wrap up and finalize something together while both being remote and not in the same office. Okay. Now this capability, like I mentioned earlier, is made available through the desktop version of Word. You don't have to launch it in Teams. It's available in the web version of Teams, and it's available for Office documents. So let's talk about what that means. Co-authoring in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and the whiteboard application, which I was talking about earlier. All those allow co-authoring at the same time. Okay. Now, one of the capabilities that's available to us as well is leaving comments. So what's wrong with this? And now in this case, right, it's a little bit awkward for Rhett to leave a comment and us to go back and forth on comments. Why? Well, because we're talking, right? But if we're working on this document independent of one another, or I'm saying, hey, Rhett, take a look at this document, let me know about later, he may use the comments capability to create a comment in a section of the document, ask some questions, and we can have dialogue around particular aspects of the document. Okay. All right, Rhett, it looks good to me. Rhett, I'm going to hang up and chat with you one-on-one, and then let's generate a phone conversation from there as well so they can see that side of that user use case other than receiving just a phone call.
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna close this document. And now let's just assume that we're gonna have a conversation with Rhett that will ultimately result in a phone call. So I'm gonna go to the conversation thread that I had with Rhett. And at this moment, in the right-hand corner, I have three options. I could just share my screen. I don't even have to talk to him. So I could share my screen and just I don't know, maybe I don't have audio or capabilities on my laptop or whatever, but I can share my screen, or I can make an audio call, or I can schedule a video call. And once I do an audio call, you'll see that this capability is very similar to what we saw earlier, right? Once this call gets established, I can still turn on my webcam, right? It's not like that's going to affect me, right? Because I decided to do an audio call first. So I can turn on my webcam if I want to. I can then share my desktop. I can have all the same actions that we had before, blurring my background and those kind of things. I can add other individuals to the phone conversation that I'm having with Rhett. The other thing that happens is we have the ability to transfer and park calls as well. So for instance, let's say I receive a phone call through Teams. I'm communicating with someone and I go, you know what, I don't know what the answer is. So I may transfer the phone, hit transfer, dial someone else, have a conversation with them and say, hey, I think this person needs some assistance. Do you mind taking care of it? They can say yes, and then I can transfer that phone call to someone else. So it's really helpful, especially in organizations like us, where our telephony systems are integrated within Teams. So when I receive a phone call, we don't have office desks. I get a phone call and it shows up on my Teams, and I can answer my phone call from within Teams, and I can forward those phone calls to other individuals. And as you can see, Rhett has placed me on hold, and now he's probably maybe consulting with someone else to maybe do a transfer, and that's what that would look like. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Rhett. I appreciate it.
Hey, Kip, we have about 5 minutes to go before the end of this presentation, and boy, have we had a lot of good stuff. So whatever you'd like to talk about towards the end, and then we have a couple questions at the end.
Yeah, sounds good. So we'll wrap up. One thing that I want to point out, and that is the Files tab, and then I'll make this really, really quick. So within each of the channels, you have the capability to store files within this location. We can drag files in, we can modify documents, we can upload documents, and then ultimately we can even sync these documents onto our local computers. So you'll see here that here's my company's OneDrive. This is cloud storage with a copy of the file that I have locally so I can go offline. And then if I choose to sync a library, those libraries are made available to me within my desktop version, so I have a local copy. This is utilizing SharePoint document libraries. No files are stored in Teams. This is just located here. Other functionality that's available to me is meeting notes by exposing OneNote from within my channel. I can actually expose Planner, which is task or group task management. So as I click on this tab, I'll see buckets, tasks assigned, different buckets, and I can actually manage tasks within my team using the Planner app by exposing or integrating it within the Teams client itself. So the capabilities start kind of getting crazy, right? Where we have all these tasks, we have notes, and we can use Teams to expose all that functionality to our user base. Okay, let's jump into the questions, because I obviously ran a little too long, and my apologies for that.
Oh yeah, there is a lot of great content, and that's why we did bring up, Kip, maybe doing a follow-up session, because there is so much about Teams in different directions, and especially how organizations need to use Teams for their specific industry.
Yeah.
Let's see. Somebody asked, do you need a license in Teams for phone calls?
So if you're doing Teams to Teams dialing, no. If you integrate telephony, where it's generating a dialed in number and someone can join the Teams meeting without the Teams client and just dial a phone number, then the answer is yes. There's a telephony integration and licensing that's required. But if you and I just have Teams, we can call each other without additional licensing.
Okay, somebody asked, is there future support to allow MP4s or any other video formats to be able to be uploaded in a scheduled meeting?
Yeah, so, and the really, like to play it so other people are watching it maybe, but I'm not 100% clear, and unfortunately this is a difficult area to have dialogue to get clarification, but let me illustrate this. Those meetings we recorded got uploaded to Microsoft Stream, which is the streaming service built into Office 365. That video will be uploaded, optimized within Stream, and then we can access that video and watch it at future times. within Stream, whether we have caption enabled or not, there's actually dictation on those videos, and you can actually search text against videos and find elements of conversation within the Stream video itself. Now, your MP4 videos, you could upload those to Stream and expose them in Teams as well, and SharePoint and other capabilities. So maybe that answered your question, but I'm not 100% sure, so my apologies.
This actually, here's a question that actually might segue into another follow-up event. A lot of people are struggling with, when do I share stuff and store stuff in SharePoint, and when do I store stuff in Teams? For example, if it's a work in progress, do you store it in one area? If it's archived, if you store it in other areas? There's a lot of questions around that.
Yeah, so the clarification is it's all in SharePoint, period. So the question is, because Teams doesn't store files, Teams just exposes SharePoint. So you're always storing files in SharePoint. So the question is maybe said another way, what's the best interface to accessing files? And adding a SharePoint document library to a channel is as simple as a couple of clicks. So it's really preference. The capabilities are not exactly the same. SharePoint is going to allow you to manage metadata. The search intelligence is far greater than that within Teams. You can access version history in SharePoint where you can't access it in Teams. So they're not exactly the same thing. I feels like SharePoint is the primary interface for more structured records, formal documents, where Teams is more ad hoc, at the point, working through stuff, and then maybe more formalized documents are probably accessed and managed through the SharePoint interface.
Got it. Thank you. Hey, everyone, we're at time, and just to be respectful of the time that we had, we appreciate everybody's attendance. And I know we did not get to everybody's questions, but we will have a follow-up. So a couple follow-up items. Yes, we will be sending out a follow-up slide deck of everything that Kip shared today. Plus, we will be showing the video recording so that you can go back and watch the different areas.
And so then that way, if we do a follow-up session or another session like this, we can tailor it appropriately for other individuals. That's our ask anyway.
Cool. Thanks, Kip. Hey, we really appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun, very informative, and I think we definitely will do some follow-up sessions to this.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks.